6 p.m. I will call the meeting to order. Clerk, may I have a roll call and an establishment of a quorum? Oh, did you?
Isaiah Crowe.
Here.
Jerry Beshall. Here. Barb Stotts.
Here.
Mike Wagner.
Here.
Matt Crowe.
Here.
Dylan Helmenstein.
Here.
I'm here as well.
All right, I have proof of posting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing done. Isaiah?
Yep.
Mary Beth?
Yes.
Mike?
Yep.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. 2.1, public input guidelines. We do have a member of the public here to speak tonight. I will just introduce this portion of the agenda, as it sometimes can feel very impersonal and awkward, because we are not allowed to give any comments or have dialogue during this portion of the agenda. And per policy, Lindsay, you'll have 2 minutes to speak, and that's written in policy, so if I change that, I probably wouldn't be asked to lead the meetings anymore. So as awful as it is, we'll set a timer, it's 2 minutes. And then most importantly, we just ask for a reasonable and respectable decorum as you share your concerns with us. And the concerns will then be directed to the individual or administrator for follow-up at a later time. So, you've got the floor.
I can just stand from here, right?
Yeah, yep.
All right, my name is Lindsay Olson, I'm from the town of Barry. I am a proud Vanguard alum from Wisconsin Heights, and I have 3 children in the district who participate in a multitude of sporting activities. My family and myself are active in the community, and both my husband and I have coached and volunteered for our kids' youth. Last year I was a volunteer for the school volleyball team, and this year I am coaching as a higher position for the 7th grade volleyball team. Last week I received a call from a paid faculty member that a school board member had a complaint about me giving volleyball information to a parent. I asked this said school board member what seems to be the problem. Why would this be an issue? Are we creating further problems or trying to solve further problems? Or are we trying to solve a problem? What exactly is this solving? This seems to be a pattern of problem creating here. Please stop and please follow the correct school protocol and processes that you as a school board member create and expect others to follow. That's all I got. I think the rest we get personally. Sounds great.
Okay, yeah, thank you for coming and sharing your concerns, and like I said, if need be, follow-up will be
Perfect.
directed to the appropriate party.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, guys.
Better late than never.
Stampede entrance, my God. So you've entered just as we're starting our public input. Is there anybody that would like to sign in and speak to us? Okay. I think I'm okay in doing this. Okay.
We haven't moved on.
No, we have now
And if
moved
you
on
miss
to
the
the next
directions,
item.
it can be a very impersonal process, because we give you the floor for 2 minutes. You can state your concern with us, but we can't engage with you during that time. If your concerns are regarding something on our agenda, then we can certainly at that point, we'll talk about it and bring up any concerns or discussion then. So you might have to stick around for the engaging topic. Anyone else?
Come on, boys, speak up.
Come on.
Now's your time.
All right,
It's perfect.
okay, I know. All right, first up, Sam. Will you pronounce your last name?
Polacek.
Polacek. All right, Sam who's gonna start first.
I just wanted to talk about the change to 11-man football. I think it's neither a good nor a bad decision. I just think it's bad timing. We're losing 16 seniors this year. Next year, we're not going to have enough players. I mean, the people on the team have maybe had 1 year of experience. I mean, the most experienced people will be like Cribbs and Chuck next year, and they don't make up the whole team. We got to sacrifice 22 players. and we just don't have enough willpower to do that at the moment. That's kind of all I got.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam, for sharing that. Okay, next up, Brock.
Alrighty,
Last
so,
name?
Fletcher.
Awesome, all
Alright,
right.
so I'm here just talking about the change to 11-man football. I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea, it's just wrong timing. Cause like, the guys that we got on the team, we don't have any size. I mean, we're good at 8-man, but if we change to 11-man, we're just gonna get beat after beat after beat, cause we don't have any linemen. And it's just gonna be bad for the kids right now, because if they get beat after beat after beat, they're not gonna wanna play football anymore. And it's just gonna be horrible on the school. It's just gonna make us all look bad, so, I mean, maybe in the future it'd be a better idea, but just not now.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And I just want to reiterate our appreciation of you all coming and voicing your voices. You're why we're here. See, you're supposed to sign in.
Oh.
But because we have so much interest tonight, we're going to formally make.
I knew there would be somebody, I knew somebody would pipe in.
If we go over 15 minutes though, we have to make a motion. Okay, last call or forever hold.
Yeah, last caller, forever hold your peace.
Okay, last call.
You knew there would be one of them.
This is so fun, you're gonna come more often, right? Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, next up, we've got John. Say your last name for us.
Reader.
Reader, awesome.
So yeah, I'm also here clearly because we love change or the thoughts of it. I have a younger brother on the team. He's a sophomore, and my neighbors, Cribs, also a sophomore, same grade. They've got nothing going for them, and I mean that in the nicest way possible.
Like personally, or just?
No, like football skill-wise.
You said no one plays.
If we put these guys into 11-man football, it'd be a massacre, and it'd be really bad. And 8-man's really brought up what we are and who we are as Heights football. And if we went back into 11-man, went to that Division 7 or whatever, it's just going to take us off the map. That's who we are. 8-man football has really just shown communities around us what we are and what we can do as a program.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I hope you all are gonna stick around, right? A little bit. You gotta wait for the exciting part of the meeting, so we'll try and move this along. But thank you again. That really means a lot to us in hearing from you directly. So moving on to 3.1. Do I have a motion to approve the Board of Education meeting minutes of August 26, 2024?
So moved. Second.
And any discussion? Hearing done. Isaiah?
Yes.
Mary Beth? Yes. Mike?
Yep.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yep.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Do I have a motion to approve the payroll, accruals, and disbursements?
So moved. Second.
Any questions on those listed? Okay, hearing done. Isaiah?
Yes.
Mary Beth? Yes. Mike?
Yep.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yep.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. All right, on to the report section. Tonight I just wanted to highlight something new we are putting into practice this year, and it's going to be our Vanguard Spotlight Award. And this really kind of stemmed, I think we've kind of had discussion as a board of wanting student voices and using this public forum as a time to celebrate the good things happening, and also to recognize the wonderful staff that we have in the district. So the Vanguard Spotlight Award is going to honor any Wisconsin Heights district employee for their passion and excellence in inspiring and supporting members of our school community. Through hard work and compassion, our staff shape the minds of our students, but also touch the hearts of those around them. And in the true spirit of the Vanguard, we are taking this opportunity to acknowledge those individuals leading the way. So staff members, students, and parents will have the opportunity to submit a nomination on behalf of a staff member who has impacted their life or their child's life or school community in a special way. We will then utilize this meeting to recognize the recipients. And really it's a time for us as a school board to hear from members of the community about how hard our staff are at work, but also to use the public forum to recognize their achievements. So look for that. I'm sure Beth is gonna put that on the website, we'll market it on Facebook. Students, I'm sure you love some teachers out there. We'd love to hear some of those ways that they're impacting your lives. So, that's all I have. We'll move on. Sarah, you're in the chair.
Oh, were we thinking we have to be good, Bill, go first?
Oh, yes, okay. So, opposite chair, sorry. Bill gets special.
But Bill's also gotta come down here like
But you do
everybody
have
else
that.
does.
Right next to me. Bill, you're on camera.
I'm in the witness protection program, so I can't. Okay, some of the projects that we had a busy summer, so some of the items that we took care of this past summer, and I appreciate the fact that the district is investing money into the structure of the buildings as well as the grounds and that to keep them up to date. We did some concrete work. We've had some tripping hazards over the past few years, so Olson Toon came in and did a bunch of concrete work out front, which turned out to, they did a nice job with the landscaping and just coordinating with that as well. Very aware of our surroundings and that. Parking lot was seal coated by Renew Seal Coat after that. We did the entire campus, just so it all looked consistent. Flooring installed, we completed the high school wing. This year we did 9 rooms, which now, if finances allow, we'll move on to the middle school classrooms, and then that would be the final stages, would be the middle school classroom flooring to go with the LVP. We did do, we moved the desk in the middle school office, which required some flooring being added there, as well as an office. We had a countertop removed last year. We also did the flooring in an office for the people services. And Olson Toon also removed a dead tree out front for us. And we're also looking at, I got a quote from Ryan from Olson Toon to redo that landscaping out in front of the district office to kind of clean that up as well. And that. We had a kitchen cooler installed for the elementary kitchen that was not part of the original elementary school project. So that is up and running, and the dietary kitchen department is thankful for that. Gym floors, basement did another nice job for us as far as finishing all 4 gym floors. Big item for elementary is solar, which is still ongoing, and I know there's some questions regarding that. So been kind of working with Burke, and I've been in touch with Kurt from Vanguard Electric, and got in touch with Brian Hudd today from Alliant to find out when some of this is going to be completed. Burke is ready to go. Their systems are all up and running and that. They did also complete, I know I gave you guys a list of, for the internet, for the inverters to be monitored. Full Spectrum did run the wiring for that. Scott is waiting to, or is in the process of purchasing a device so we can protect anything from a lightning strike to go into the main system and that. So that doesn't keep the system from running. It just, we wouldn't be able to monitor it until he's got everything ready to go. Roofing wise, we, in elementary school, we did have an inspection done, which they came across 2 small holes. One was on top of the gym, the other was on top of the music and art room location, and both of them have been repaired. So, and in talking with Nations Roofing, who did the repair, they had thought that based off of the location of them, that it looks like the solar project may have created them. There were a couple pinholes. So I did talk to Burke about that. I did ask the tech from Nations to put that in his report, so then Burke would have some information on that. So that would not be a cost to the district if it turns out to be Full Spectrum's cost. So, but them repairs were $2,200. We did have couple driving rains that created leaks. We did have a water test done. I'm still waiting for the results of that to see if they were able to locate anything. It was in the second, third grade hall on the cafeteria side. It came down just on that wall. Couldn't find anything up on the roof that looked like it would leak, so it had to have been something with a driving aspect to it. So I'm still waiting to find out about that. And then inside the boiler room, we had a roof leak there that from one of the boiler stack vents. And nothing stood out to them as well. I was up there with them looking at both of them. Nothing was obvious, so they were going to do a water test there as well. Plumbing over there, we're running into some defective parts that are, we've been replacing. Basically water shutoffs is what they are, underneath your sinks and that. Pinhole leaks have been created, so it's defective parts, but the company that did the work is no longer in business, so we have no recourse there. So I'll continue to work with Mike. Mike wanted to know what our cost was to it, so I sent that to him, whether we're, I'm still waiting to hear back whether we're being reimbursed for that. And middle school, high school, electrical, we just recently had some electrical done by Nichols Electric. Construction for middle school desk move. We did have to replace a sensor in the chiller number 2, which was part of the high school project. It wasn't able to run because it was sensing too cold of temperature, so then we ended up having to have ASAP replace that sensor. It was not under warranty. And then the grounds, as far as grounds goes, I know the courtyard project has been brought up as well. I've had True Green in 3 times now to spray that courtyard. I brought in, when I had Ryan here, I had Ryan look at that, the scope of that project. He's still looking at cost if we had somebody like an Olson Toon do it. His comments back on an email were the fact that there's a lot of upkeep up until the whole area becomes established. So who's going to do that first of all? Who knows the difference between prairie grass and a weed, So if we pursue this further, do we have them come in and do the maintenance of it until it becomes established, and then maybe one of our classes takes it over? So he's still working on getting me a cost for that. But he's got the diagram of that, the project that was chosen, so he knows the layout and everything for that. So just waiting to hear back from him. And then custodial-wise, we had Brett retire this past spring. So we have contracted with CMS, who does our contract cleaning for the elementary school as well. We've contracted with them to do the cleaning of the middle school. So I just started the 3rd.
Thanks, Bill.
That's what I got.
All right, any questions for Bill?
I just appreciate you having them mention that the pinhole leaks that you mentioned may have come from the installation, because we had a whole conversation about that, and we're sure that it's going to be okay, so I'd like them to know that there might be challenges coming from it.
Yeah, there hasn't been anybody out there other than them. We've had some HVAC work done up there as far as annual PM, but they've been on the lower roofs and that, and they know ASAP has been pretty good about making sure that they're not dropping tools or putting tools down or anything like that. They try to stay on the walk pads as best as possible. So, pretty quick. And you're concerned, so the solar situation, full spectrum, all their systems are installed. And they do have to come back. We had one of the, or actually 2 of the panels were damaged due to a rocket that one of our classes shut off.
Not any of you?
So I happened to be up there this spring looking at checking the system out, and I noticed this rocket sitting there, and the panel was cracked, so. Full Spectrum is going to replace that at no cost to us. Okay. So.
Rockets are covered.
So that's one of the things that it came from Mr. Marks' class. So one of the things that we'll have to do do is make sure that they're aware that they can't, you know, obviously you got wind direction and all that, that plays into the fact, that factor,
That's
so.
what he's supposed to be teaching them.
The biggest thing is we're waiting for Alliant to install their meters. They have them, they've been calibrated. I reached out to EC, or Nichols Electric, Rod, as well as Kurt from Vanguard, and Nichols Electric was under the assumption, based off the meetings that they had prior to this scope of work taking place, was that Alliant needed a hookup inside the CT cabinet, which is just a metering cabinet is what it is. And so they provided that, but now Alliant is saying they need 120 out where right where their meters are gonna be placed, so.
Which everybody has known for 2 years
Yeah.
since we've started.
So
I'm just gonna add that.
I did talk to Mitch Dons, who works for Nichols Electric. He's the one that ran the job out here today. And he, based off of their conversation with Alliant, it's in Alliant's hands now that they provided it. Alliant needs to figure out how to get it to that point. So, and I'll stay in touch with, it was Brian Hudd who I talked to from Alliant today, and he was supposed to reach out to the tech to find out when an install was going to occur. He never got back to me. So, and once they install, then once Alliant installs their meters, then Vanguard Electric can come and do they'll check the system. Basically what that entails is the inverters are turned on, the power is dropped for that building, and then they have to make sure that none of the load goes back onto the grid at that point. And if there are any issues, then they have to solve them before they can initially start the system. So Tracy Johnson will have to come, do an inspection. He's been here a few times. Burke said everything's been fine. And then, if everything is operational, then they commission it to be operational, and they figure that would be a 2-week process. So best case scenario to me would be middle of October.
I
Right now.
chuckle right in time for daylight savings time.
And Vanguard is not doing the test themselves because they have never worked with a system this large, so they're doing it with a third party. So,
Thanks for all your work on that.
Yep.
Sounds like you're general contracting a home build, so it's a nightmare. But thanks for all of that. Does anyone else have any other specific questions? You're kind of thinking this would more be like a quarterly thing, because I know things bounce, and sometimes there's a lull and stuff, but it's nice to hear how hard you're working at things and kind of keep a running tab of what's going on around here. So appreciate you coming and sharing all that with us, and keep up the good work. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Sarah. Smooth exit.
My first celebration was to Bill and his crew, like over the summertime. They did a fantastic job, and I was sitting in the library and Brian was up on the windows wiping all the cobwebs out from the window, and I just thought that was amazing. Him going like up on the roof, out on the windows. So that little picture is a little snapshot of him up on the roof. So just huge. They worked so hard at getting the school ready, and it looked amazing, smelled amazing. So just wanted a huge thank you to them. Something else to celebrate. So our current enrollment is at 395, which is awesome. I kind of went from where last year at this time, so this could fluctuate, but last year at this time, we have 5 more kindergartners, 3 more first graders, 2 more second graders, 1 more third grader, 4 more fourth grader, and 1 last 5th grader. So super exciting. Our average class sizes kind of vary right now. 4K is sitting at around 16 kids. Kindergarten is right now my largest class size with around 22. First grade's around 16, second grade's around 21, third grade is 18, fourth grade is 17, and 5th grade is at 20. So that's as of right now, and we'll kind of see where enrollment goes as the year continues. Student achievement. We had a wonderful week back for our teacher in service. Teachers were ready to get back, do some learning. We went over a lot of logistical things. They were very patient with me, trying to wrap my head around logistical things, and they were great teaching me, this is how we do things, or hey, what do you have ideas with this? So I really am appreciative of the staff. Staff also went on their own and presented PBIS to the whole school, so they took ownership of that. So it wasn't just me coming in, they wanted to take ownership of how can we make our kids successful and our best positive behavior for them. So they hosted a little kickoff. So far, classes are filling out passports, making sure they are teaching expectations in the classroom, in the hallways, in the lunchroom. I did that expectation, so they didn't just have to listen to the teacher all day. And then in the bathrooms as well. And then next Thursday, we also have a bus coming on site, and kids will actually be getting on the bus to review expectations for the bus as well. My school leadership team has been working really hard at creating our school improvement plan. We looked at our spring data and found that there were gaps with a few of our students. So that's where we really wanted to focus. Our goal for this year is focusing on a couple of our student groups to do this and to focus and to really fix that. We decided we're really going to have a designated targeted support time in our schedule. So it's already in our schedule. The teachers created non-negotiables. So during this time, it's not a study hall for the kids. It's not a time for them to play games on their Chromebooks. This is going to be a targeted time for support staff to come in and work with students, and for that teacher to work with students to really help bridge those gaps. Throughout the year, our school leadership team and our PLCs, we are going to continue to meet to go over our action plan. So we added in our master schedule that time for the literacy targeted support groups. And then throughout the year, we have different, I have it in the schedule, which meeting we will cover each action item. So that will be completed throughout the year and going back and refocusing as well. Because we also know that between February and March can kind of get crazy and hectic, but also really making sure this is at the forefront for our school year. Then the first week of school, I, being new, wanted to go in and visited classrooms. So I went into classrooms and read story to them, and it was fantastic from 4K to 5th grade, and the response that I got from all of them was a lot of fun. But just from them getting to know me getting to know them, just to know what to expect from me. And then I continue holding my welcome back meetings with staff. So far I've met with 75% of the elementary school staff, and even EAs have met with me. And I even had one of our building subs, that's not our district sub, our actual, just a building sub. And then also Lisa from the bus company sat down and met with me as well. So a nice wide range. The big takeaway that I'm getting is that they still kind of feel like it's Mazo and Black Earth, so really bridging that gap together. The huge thing that everyone tells me is the best is they're loving their teammates and their grade level teammates who they work with, and that is just a big positive feeling here. That's awesome. Yeah. Open house night was a huge success. I heard lots of positive feedback having that quiet hour for pictures. We had about 80% of our families attend at the elementary level. Something that we learned is that the picture line got extremely long. Apologize for that. So we are looking in next year getting possibly 3 photographers to keep that moving. Go Brightway was there. I know they answered tons of questions on transportation and all that. And then just a couple things for financial responsibility. Classroom teachers in August really use their classroom budget to help set up their classroom. So maybe it was little carpet squares to put on the carpet, name tags, a lot of those things that teachers would use out of pocket, they use their budget, classroom budget for. And then we also purchased a whole bunch of snacks to have up in the front office for students who might not have a snack to bring, or even for students who forget snack as well. Any questions?
I will say that Sarah was an instant celebrity at the football game on Friday. You know, as an elementary principal, you were a celebrity. She's getting high fives. Brody wasn't getting all those.
You guys are on the field, it's okay.
Awesome, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right, Liz.
All right. Sarah's a hard one to follow now. I'll sit down there next time. All right. So,
Bear with us, guys, bear with us.
very good.
Yeah, almost there.
Awesome, well, thank you. First of all, obviously, we have a nice group of students here too, which can maybe attest to some of the fun that we did. Yeah.
They're slowly inching their way out.
Noticing the slow exit here. But really, just kind of following off of Sarah, wow, what a great start to the school year. You know, it was really calm, there was no changes, it was really just, we just walked right in and went. No, we had a great visitor too, so a couple really big celebrations. It was so much fun to hear and have students in the building. All of you, we're all excited to have you. The hallways, like I always said, were so quiet through the summer. There was, you know, some scatter and stuff, but to see students in the hallway, whether it's at the high school side or the middle school, wherever they are, it doesn't matter. It's really great. And it's the students, you could tell, were excited to be there. And you know what, they're still excited, so that's good. That's good, we're a weekend, so I'm thankful that you guys are still excited to be there and getting to classes on time and doing what they need to be doing. So again, I think the other half is our staff was great because they're super flexible. You know, we had things that were changing on the fly that first day, and they were just, we're just gonna go with it. And that to me was really great. Our students supported that as they kind of knew some things that were going on. That first day of school, we decided still to take our middle school students on a tour of the building, and we had station leaders. Auntie Michelle was a station leader, and it was a lot of fun. It was great to hear. She was in charge of hallways, so that was a fun one. Our high school students did not do that. I did not make our high school students do that. We did something else in the cafeteria on Friday, but a big piece of that was fun to see the interactions of our students with the people that were giving those tours of those areas, whether it was the hallway talk, whether it was the bus talk, whether it's how do we work on the playground. Our cafeteria staff was also involved, so they talked about how you behave in the cafeteria, how do you bring your trays up, where do you put things. I think those are really just things that sometimes get overlooked that we just think students know how to do. And you know, I thought it was well used, a time well spent to have them be able to do that. And then we had student leaders coming in, and we learned the school song. Those middle school students, we till homecoming. So that was really great. Student leaders did that, which was even more impactful because it wasn't like an adult standing up there and doing it. It was our student leaders doing it, which was great. And our volleyball team even sang it, so that was pretty impressive as well. So I'm looking over there. They may get up to do it at homecoming. We'll see. So, but yeah, so those are some really great things that were going on. Secretary of Education decided to visit us, which was also a very large piece of it. He obviously came in, was really excited about what we could do here at Wisconsin Heights. We're a rural school, but we have so much to offer our students. And our students take advantage of all those opportunities and then some. They honestly push us to sometimes think even further outside the box, and that was shown in a variety of ways. Right now there's one video out there of our just talking generally about our school and about our population and about things we offer. There are 2 more videos coming out, potentially 3, where there's one that's really focusing on our Vanguard racing team and how it tied to our CTE and how it was able to embed into that curriculum. Then there's also a highlighted of our CTE teachers with both Mr. Hopper, Ms. Hauser, and Ms. Schomburg, really talking and discussing how we keep this going in a rural district where we may not have all the big companies right outside our doorstep. So that was really, really exciting. And then they also did something on our youth apprenticeships.
And so a youth apprenticeship is where our students get an opportunity to go and try the work field and try an experience that they're excited about. And I know I got a couple up there, that's up, and I know that there's a few that get to do that. And it's a real thing where you get to see a student in that environment and get to see that love and that passion of what they were doing. And so we got to visit a farm that we had 2 students on, matter of fact, one that was working with the horses and one that was working out in the fields. And then we also got to go to one of the restaurants here in Mizomini and have a chance to see a student working that. So that was really cool. So some really great things, some celebrations of that just, a great way to start the school year. That's part of hopefully a good high energy boost for our students. Student achievement, I'm gonna call it schedules are really done. Hopefully students are in the classes that they wanted. I know not everything was offered every hour. I'm looking at our students just because of the fact that I know that that's, sometimes one of the barriers that we do hit. We're working through that. But again, both Andy and Nikki worked very hard on balancing that and getting those things in Skyward, and I couldn't be more thankful because if students aren't in classes, we're not learning. So that's our other piece of that. Another part of it is that we have definitely added a few changes into the building. One of them, I'll be honest, is our cell phone piece. And the students, I know, are embracing it with energy and positivity. So no, honestly, no, they honestly did a great job of giving some feedback and having us make sure things are in an area that we can still get our work done and do things, but yet still be held accountable for what they need to be doing when they're inside these walls during the day. And I thought that was really great. So looking forward to that and seeing how that progresses for our students and what we can do and how that will hopefully even boost some of those academics and maybe some other opportunities that come through that as well. Professional learning communities, this is another big piece, is the process of continuing to work through us gaining and grasping a goal that we are looking at for our students. It's part of our SIP area, a SIP goal that we have where we recognize there's a gap in learning and we are trying to close that gap while still pushing in all other areas, right? So now you're trying to, in a physics world, that's probably not a real problem. It can't work mathematically, but our teachers have a way of doing it in the classroom, and with them collaboratively working together, I think this is going to be a great thing for all our students, and seeing that advantage point for how we can close some gaps, but still stretch where we need to stretch our students for those. And then, so another fun part is hopefully our newsletter is now out. We did have a little snafu with a little technical piece, but I think we got it. So those newsletters will come out each week. I don't want to ask our students right now, did they check their email? Has anybody got it? You got it. All right, look at that. So now should I ask anybody, did they read it? All right, well, okay. But hopefully, hey, you never know. I put some things in the bottom of them, and sometimes that includes stuff in our office. Maybe not treats and snacks, but something in there that could help. So again, those are part of it as well. Homecoming is coming up, super excited. Our student council, both middle school and high school, have been working really hard together to make things happen for us. We have some ideas that maybe are a little different than what was done in the past to give some students some time here in our building to get some things done so we can work as a community. But it also helps for all of us to get to know them and to work, and then we get to go and support our team and hopefully go for a great thing on a Friday Night Lights there. So fiscally, we are also still working on our budget. There's definitely some allocations where I'm seeing maybe some things were put in one spot and I'm trying to balance it so it's equitable across the board for our teachers and our staff so that all our students get an opportunity for some of the things they want to do. And so that's kind of where we are at right now. Awesome. Yes. Nice. Super. All right. Any questions? All right. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, thanks. I appreciate it. All right. So, Melissa. All right. Thank you guys.
And don't feel obligated, admin, to talk about each and every bullet point. We have the reports, given our audience, yes. Summarize, give us the main highlights.
Okay. Good. I brought hats. I thought it would help. The sad thing is
because I found occasions to wear these in other times in my life. All right, so our celebrations, this is for athletics. See the golf ball? It's a golf green. But first our celebrations. Great job. Our coaches and our athletes have had an awesome start to the season. We've had a few injuries, but that tends to happen. The heat doesn't help with that either. But just really enthusiastic coaches for high school and middle school sports has just been really great to see. And really working with our coaches to make sure we're in it for the right reasons, right? We're not just in it for wins and losses, we're in it to grow great people and to help them have great middle and high school experiences. So, and thanks to all of our clubs who sent things in to be represented at Back to School Night, and they're going to continue to kind of push some of those and working on some further offerings to give some different things for people to get involved in. Okay, athletics with the hat. Okay, so as of the 4th, we have 129 high school students involved in a sport, and 50 middle school, that's actually up to about 58 right now, middle school students in sports. So that's pretty great. A little higher than we were last year, and we'll continue to monitor that. High school's we have our foreign exchange students getting involved as well right now, so we've got a few more of those as well, which is super fun. We're working on how to best deal with athletic and club registration for the future. I know this has been kind of a headache for staff and parents, and is my kid registered? How do they get registered? All of those things. So looking at some ways, and I'll be bringing that to you in the future about how we can kind of streamline that to make it better for staff and coaches, but also, and most importantly, clearer for families. So they know, is my kid registered? What do they need to be registered? Do they need a physical? Do they need an alternate year card? What do they need, right? Because that is terribly unclear, and historically, no one seems to know what's going on. So, but we're going to fix that, right? That's easy, right? We can work on streamlining that. Along with that is working on that communication cycle, so that registrations, requirements, eligibilities, things like that are more on people can start to know when to expect to hear those things. Looking at handbook revisions to ensure consistency with our athletics and activities, and to make sure it goes with those changes to the middle school high school handbook. So starting to look at that, and we'll be bringing in people like counselors, coaches, teachers, some of our varsity athletes and club participants to take a look at that too and get their feedback, see what they think. And working to create a coach's handbook. Just because we have a lot of people who've coached for a long time, and so they have that institutional knowledge, but really, how do you order supplies? What do you have to do before your first game, meet, match, whatever that might be? Just to make sure everything is consistent for all of them. And to talk more closely about how they're evaluated and what things we value as a program. Okay. This is my kids, so if I get head lice, it's first. Activities. So we have a few advisor vacancies we're looking at, but we've got some people interested, so that's exciting too. Things like in chess club. We're still looking for somebody for esports, but I'm confident Mr. Hopper will recruit someone. He's actively looking. So we are going to be having some club fairs during lunches just to further promote those. I know NHS met today for the first time. That was great to see, and FFA is meeting soon to kick off as well. So looking to further expand those, but they're off to a good start. And getting input, I've gotten a lot of emails, especially from our middle school students, about clubs and things that they would like to see, which is really exciting for them. So, and it makes me feel good that they're reaching out to me, because that means I'm saying it enough times. Tell me what you want. All right.
I will expect props every time.
I got whole costumes
Okay,
at
good.
home. It was just It's a long week, I was tired. All right, so transportation. Okay, we're working with Go Right Way. We had a few little struggles. We've got a few buses that are tending to be a little late. I'm meeting with Go Right Way later this week to talk about those things and ways that we can best serve our students. Sometimes as adults we think about what's best for us, but it's really not about us. It's about the tiny humans, right, that we have to get home and get home safely and hopefully timely, right? So they're not either missing part of their first classes, we've had a little bit of that, or getting home at 5:30 or 6 o'clock at night, because we're waiting on buses and some of our students with some anxiety can get a little nervous when their bus isn't there, and parents can get anxious if the bus isn't getting home. So we're gonna work on that. I do want to give a little shout out. Cobeson has been really responsive in terms of working with our athletics and activities so that we're able to have more middle school athletic contests because they start earlier. People like our football team who have to travel a long way can actually get a bus at a reasonable time and not have to worry about stuff like that. So I'm really encouraged by how that's gone. Our upcoming events, homecoming week is coming up. And check out the district website for our sports schedule. We got stuff going almost every night of the week and almost anywhere you want to go. So come check out and see all of our people.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thanks. That's our microphones.
Go ahead, Dale.
All right, Dale.
Where's your hat?
Uh-oh, they're all, they're going down. They're like,
We tried.
No, it's riveting. Boy, Dale, you just drove them all over.
It's because you didn't have a hat.
Thank you for putting all those chairs
Thanks for
back.
coming.
Thanks for hanging in as long as you did. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.
Like others, we're off to a great start. I'll just get right to my report. Include the AP scores really the last 5 years. I don't think we reported that out last year at all, so did 2 years prior, so you can see the numbers there. Just we currently are offering 6 or 7 AP classes, and estimated about 45 students right now going to be enrolled within those 7 courses. We have added a couple of classes in the last couple of years, added an English course, and a world history course for AP. They're going to look a little deeper into the numbers, just numbers on paper, but who are those kids? And boys, girls, different demographics. We haven't done a lot of data dive, just because we want all of our students to have access to those AP courses, and we want to make sure that we're providing those opportunities. So I do anticipate us doing a little work on that end. My September newsletter kicked out a big letter really to the parents about Act 20, just informing them what they can expect on their end. We've been working, following the news really with DPI. I think 3 of us attended webinars last week on AIMSweb. Our 3 intervention teachers have had their AIMSweb training. We're now just waiting for the state to upload our students into the program. We could start that screener as early as next week. Probably will be the week after, but we're aligned really well to be right on track with that. So I feel good about that piece. And my current projects right now is just really making sure everybody has what they need. So doing a lot of work, just getting our online programs of testing, all our kids uploaded and all the different assessments that we have coming up because it comes quick. So I think we're in pretty good shape. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Thanks, Dale.
Thanks, Dale.
Garrett?
So my update is pretty short and sweet. August, as we're kind of getting back into school, everything is starting back up. New teacher contracts, new payrolls, hourly staff coming back. Everybody did get paid the first payroll, so that's a good thing. That's always the best thing. So that's
thing, we are paying people and paying them correctly. For kind of my piece as kind of the business manager, we have year-to-date costs through August 31st, which I shared the report with you. Yes, we do not have any revenues or barely any revenues. That is perfectly normal. Our big cash in August was a taxes receivable from the prior year, so cash is okay, revenues are not. That's natural for a school district this time of the kind of revenue cycle for our district. State aid will come in September, and then there's 5 other payments throughout the year. Taxes come in January, February, and then August. So our revenues for the year hit at those times, and as a tax-heavy district, that's when our revenues hit. So just kind of making the board aware. One additional piece I wanted to share is the Fund 46, which is the capital project fund that's sitting currently at a balance of roughly $3 million. We still have some lingering invoices coming from the solar project and electric related to the solar project, so taking that into account, but that helps with kind of our planning moving forward of what's available to do for not only the year, but then kind of planning this summer, next summer, and the summer after, kind of what we have available to kind of supplement our normal maintenance budget. So, and then one other thing is, I know it's not really finance related, but we're really looking forward to the pupil count on next Friday. That drives our revenue limit number, so I'm always excited for that day and what those numbers are looking like. And we hope there's a lot of kids in school that day, and just kind of our enrollment keeps picking up like it has been the past couple of years.
So you're saying the principals need to incentivize with treats or something?
Well, it doesn't matter if they're here that day, but just kind of overall, our enrollment trend is ticking up. Yes, it is okay to be that day, but we want all kids here every day. And then kind of just on that note, we're kind of finalizing the 23-24 year and kind of getting reports done and kind of things finalized so the aid run can run on October 15th for the statewide aid run. So, any questions?
I had a community member come up to me, sometime in the last month, talking about the district, if it doesn't need to levy its limit or its full authority, then it has no repercussions on the following years financially. But I thought like I remember hearing you something about the state aids and how that does get impacted if we don't levy everything that we are able to.
So I would say there's kind of 2 answers to that question, is that yes, the board has the revenue limit is a limit you can levy up to. Kind of it says between general aid and your levy, you can levy up to this amount in the controlled funds. So it kind of sets the amount there. And state aid is based on costs you spend the year prior. So in essence, if you levy less than the ability, you have less to spend and you have less cost to get aided on the following year. So indirectly it impacts you the next year, but it doesn't per se prevent you from then levying to the max your following year. So kind of there's 2 answers to that question, is that if you do it in a singular year, it does not impact your ability to levy to the max the following year, or it doesn't impact kind of what your revenue limit formula will calculate as the kind of overall pot or your revenue limit kind of calculation. It won't impact that calculation, but it will impact the general aid number, which kind of is an offset to the tax limit.
And so in a world where that first year we didn't do the full authority and the second year we did, comparatively we'd get less state aid and local property taxes would be higher in that second year. Okay, thank you.
And then I also kind of had a question come up about kind of how the budget played out towards the year end, and that we had an additional revenue related to high cost transportation aid, and why that happened and what kind of drives or calculates that aid. So high cost transportation aid, it's kind of an appropriation the state sets, so that appropriation amount can change between budgets. So one budget it may be a bigger pot, the next budget it may not. And how that calculation works is the appropriations there, districts statewide are kind of put in a pot of their transportation costs, and then any district that has 140% of the statewide average of transportation costs per student, any cost above 140% is then put in this pot to be kind of aided. So let's say if there is 50 million in that pot and there is 20 million in the appropriation, each district will get aided on 40% of their costs above 140% of the statewide average. So 140% was $1,000 and we had $1,200 per student, we'd get aided on that $200 above the $1,000 per student. So depending on how statewide costs go and depending on how our costs go compared to the statewide average, that number could change. And as you can guess, transportation costs change with field cost changes, different contracts coming up, and if districts that are doing their own transportation by buses. So it's very hard to predict, and we kind of a lot of times budget that conservatively, hoping that it comes in over budget on the revenue side, and we have a little extra money to kind of have discretion over it here.
I just laugh at the sheer complexity of the answers that like were expected to relate to the taxpayer. You know, you have a simple question and it's like, it's not simple. It's like intentionally make it as impossible to understand as possible. But that's why we hired a business manager.
That's what you say. I'll get back to you as soon as I
Yeah,
can.
exactly. Yeah. One moment, please, Derek. All right, anything else? Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, Derek.
All right, Kelly?
Great. It was a great start to the school year. One of my favorites ever, I think, in my entire career of education. So it was really wonderful. Huge thank you to everybody who helped with that. Quick student service highlights, immunizations. Megan Call, our new full-time nurse, is really working to keep up with that and get all those emergency health plans out quickly. And then another thing that we don't think of very often, but Mike Ruby, if we have a student who comes into the district who has been identified as an English language learner, goes through a screening process and checks to see what kind of services they may need. So I think that's an important one to highlight because his role with registration is a little bit more complex than we sometimes remember. Obviously the big piece here is our students with disabilities. We are at 120 students. That is the highest we've been at for the last several years. Those kids are still coming and we're finding those needs, different ways to respond to those needs. Each of those is an individual child, so sometimes students are counted with multiple disabilities, but within our system, they are still just one student, and it's often under their primary disability. So whether a student has been diagnosed with autism and ADHD, they'll be under one. Often that's why that OHI category is so high, because kids with multiple health needs can end up in OHI, and it's also where we put our students with ADHD, which is one of our most prevalent disabilities. Other than that, it is just kind of like Derek said, the reports that occur to reflect summer school, and then the transfer of service report, which Derek would explain much better than I would, but I'll start it and you can chime in and correct me if I'm wrong. But that's really where we have assumed responsibility for a student that is a student with an IEP or an ESL or an English language learner that receives services that may incur additional costs. So you're looking at potential exceptions to the revenue and the cost of the services. So for example, when you have several students move in that come to us with a one-on-one aid, those costs are not costs that we anticipate. Corrections?
Yep.
Okay.
And then it's a student previously identified with an IEP or English language learning that we can't be the ones to initially identify for this exemption to apply.
So we had several in and a couple out that we've been finalizing. So, any questions?
I have a question. So, like, at what point does EPI start paying us for over identification for OHI? Because this seems really, really high. And it's not like a place just like I'm wondering, because it's going to send up a flag at some point.
I will have to look and get back to you.
Okay.
I don't know at what point.
And then the other thing is like, one of the things I see is I see the 504 piece, where there's 13 students with 504s and 120 students with IEPs. Do all the students who have IEPs have a 504 before they get there as a part of RTI?
No, so that's a really interesting thing to bring up. So if we remember the IEP, the difference between an IEP and Section 504, when you have a student who requires direct services, that's generally where you're looking at an IEP. The 504s tend to be more accommodation plans. And Wisconsin is historically, compared to other states, the lowest of 504s. So it is a systems issue that we've been talking about, and actually a system we're trying to shift a little bit, because we can be skipping that step of a student who could just receive 504 services and be successful without that individualized instruction or specially designed instruction in a special education setting or from a special education teacher. So definitely a systems issue that we'd like to continue to look at.
And I think it's like, and I know Liz was talking about earlier, before in a previous meeting, like with UDL, and I know they're gonna work on some of those things, because when you said ADHD is one of our more heavy identified students with, OHI, or needing assistance, like there's so many things that can be done in the classroom. That's why I was saying usually there's a 504 in place for students with ADHD before there's IEP. So, because you usually tier your systems up instead of going directly into instruction. So that, I know that'll be worked on over time, I know.
Is that a complex process then to go backwards?
Well, yeah, the whole process for either one is very complex. So
Yeah, well, true. It's like,
Well,
it's small to large, seems maybe easier than large.
You
back
can
to
do kind
small.
of the internal transfer if we thought we were going for an IEP and we realized the student doesn't need to qualify for an IEP. We can do a transfer over to a 504, and our goal is really looking at these high schoolers especially, because an IEP does not follow them forever. But a 504 can continue on in their university or job. So that really is the goal, where we need to start looking at helping our students transition to a 504 instead of an IEP. And then also looking at our systems issues of, are we skipping that step, and what other things can we put in place for kids that could keep them out of special education while still providing good instruction and the supports that they need.
Right, and I think one of the things too is, and one other thing that I don't know if the board knows, is that I'm really glad we have another psychologist, which is fantastic, because the psychologists, do they administer the 504s, or they don't in charge of the 504s? Okay. But they're also in charge of doing the IEPs, and I've always just had this pet peeve about, it's hard to have a psychologist write the evaluation, and then all of a sudden, well, I don't want this, you can then pass it on. So, and I know it doesn't happen, but it's always been one of those things I'm curious about, because I always feel like that happens, and I've had to slam my foot down several times to stop that, because it wasn't needed. But yeah, I appreciate you being on all that. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Thank you for the figures.
Awesome.
and the
Yeah, I
graphics.
love the visual.
The visual's
Yeah.
great. It is fantastic.
Awesome.
Yes, those numbers are growing though.
I know, yeah, we don't love what it indicates,
Yeah.
but we love what you've put forth. Thanks, Kelly. Michelle, all right.
Well, I'll be, quick and concise as well, but my celebration, as you can imagine, is this incredible team that we have to work with here at Heights. I mean, they have, applause. But they have done so much, as they've already shared, just to get ready for school, for when our students came here and our staff. It was, really that kickoff to, I agree with Kelly, this was really just exciting, and you could just sense the energy and enthusiasm in the room with our staff, and that was really cool to see. So a tribute to the entire team, so they were fantastic. Another celebration, as Liz talked a little bit about Secretary Cardona's visit, I would say celebration, but also one of our biggest challenges, as I put, because working with the federal government is interesting, because every time we got another email, it was like, oh, plans have changed. Oh, guess what?
But you can't tell anyone yet, but maybe you can.
You can't tell anyone, but that was, I will say kudos again to the entire team, because things changed in an instant, like every 5 seconds, and they were flexible and like, all right, we'll pivot, we'll go this way, we'll go that way, and I don't think they give themselves enough credit. So I appreciate all they did to make that a fantastic visit, and really showcase all that's going on that's amazing in our school. Like, wait till you see some of the videos. It's going to be really neat, and I think our community was really Dylan helped with getting the Mazo sign with welcoming, and just having those conversations, once we could tell people like, hey, this is going on, or even in secret, that wasn't in secret one, they were just really excited to celebrate what was going on here, so that was a big celebration. Another challenge is that quickly came up, we did a safety, so as you approved the safety, the crisis plan last time, and so we had our training with staff, which was awesome to do, but it really raised a lot of questions from all of the staff. Just, okay, what do we do in this situation? How does this work? And so we've realized that we need to do more with our staff in that planning piece. And so actually we're having a safety meeting tomorrow with our committee, so that is all of our administrators as well as Bill, Scott, we have local law enforcement that'll be here as well, so we're all just regrouping, looking at what we already have in place, but then looking into the future. And so that leads into priorities and progress and things like that. So school culture's been a big one, and that's been really, really exciting. I loved having those kids here today, but just seeing how we can engage our students and bringing their voices to the table. Homecoming, the student council students are going to be here at the next board meeting to share homecoming and what they have in store, and so just getting their voices here. But then that school, that safe school environment is a priority. I had a chance to meet with the Department of Justice, connect with them, and so every year you have to do some compliance. You have to send them things to be in compliance with school safety, and there are some things that we need to work on. And so that's what we're going to be really talking about tomorrow at our safety meeting. Things that we are definitely, we've, went full force at getting a lot of the things accomplished already, and really had lots of great conversations, but just a lot more conversations will happen, and how, especially some of the dollars will play into that, because there's some things that are going to cost money that we have to do. So more on that probably at the next board meeting. And then just lots of communication. We had our district newsletter came out. We have that quarterly. We just put on the website just today a landing page for the secretary's visit. So it has all of we want to just have one place where all the community and staff could access it. So it has all the photos, all the videos, all of that. So we're excited to share that. And I think that's it. I think that's all.
Yeah, I think the safety piece obviously is a little bit more in front, knowing what happened in Georgia. And I give kudos to the staff and the law enforcement getting all of those kids out of that building in 2.5 minutes. I mean, that was absolutely amazing, and that's a big school. And, it just goes to show that that's always got to be at the forefront of every school, is school safety. Because you never know when it's going to happen, or where it's going to happen.
And I was going to say, just to appreciate, Michelle, when you came in, because you put a lot of work into getting that safety plan ready in a very short amount of time. And then I think, like you're saying, just in the last 2 weeks since we met as a board, even around us, there have been situations at school districts. So you putting in that work, I think a lot of families are very thankful for that.
And I think something else that comes out of that we've talked about is, right, you think maybe you're okay, and then you learn something else, and you're like, oop, nope, the bar keeps getting raised. And I think when you talk about, a Fund 46 dollar amount of $3 million, and people might be gasping at that, but you start adding in some new safety protocols or some changes that law enforcement say, and you can spend money really fast. So I think that's also a testament of being good stewards financially and putting away, knowing that things will arise like this, and I don't think you can spend enough, to ensure safety and presence at our facilities. So yeah, more conversations to come, but yes, good stuff. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Michelle. Do we have a bunch of people on? Not okay. I was gonna move, but maybe it's a moot point now. Because our 60 eyeballs have left the room. So. All right, so we'll move on to district business 6.1. And this is our second reading of the new proposal to our new proposed committee structure framework. We did wordsmith it a little bit differently than last time. You'll see the phrase, the board as a whole has been removed, and we really just tried to wordsmith it. It's a fascinating thing because we looked at some of the other school districts and what they had, and it really is the discretion of the board and how the policy is written. Some were very general, like, we have committees. Yeah, you know, and it was like, nothing. And then some you could tell were just straight up Neola, like Robert's Rules of Orders, like this is how you conduct meetings. So, you know, it is up to the discretion, obviously, of the district and the board to write this policy, so I wouldn't say there's a very standard framework that was written that we could find. Do you want to ask some of your questions?
Well, I feel like there are questions that the policy committee could answer and then come back with.
Well, I don't.
Touche.
There's a double delegation.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I think.
I feel like the dinosaur that was around when this was going on, so.
I think in layman's terms though, like a lot of it, and I'll echo maybe kind of what Liz had said about the dress code and some of that policy. Like I think we've tried to not be a policy governing board where lay out every black and white thing and so easily your questions, who does that, what about this, or what about that, like those are those opportunities for conversations. And, you know, at the start of every meeting, I ask for approval of the agenda. Anybody can speak up and say, we're present, I don't like what you've listed on this agenda. There's so many different outlets and avenues for you as board members to say, I don't agree with this, I don't like this, and especially in following Robert's Rules of Orders. We have standard committees, which we've outlined, but it also lets us open it up for different ad hoc committees. So let's say the football, I don't know, let's just say that's a topic. Where we're like, I think we need a task force and maybe a separate ad hoc committee to really talk about this. When your findings and motion is complete, the ad hoc committee goes away. So our standing committees are the ones that we've adopted and said, I think on an annual basis, these are some good committees to have all the time. So there's two distinctions of those different kinds of committees, but there isn't, you know, a rule to when or when you cannot call an ad hoc meeting.
Well, and like I said in the, and when I sent these questions along, I don't think it's going to be, this policy is well structured for us as our separate member board, right? Because we all work well together. But, you know, I think that there's policies, if we were to go through them right now, you know, they wouldn't work for us anymore. You know, our dynamic, our board dynamic. And I think we came across, you know, poorly written policy when we came up to the appointments. And it was because it felt like it was written for a board back when it was passed and not all boards at all situations. And so I think that there are some situations here where it's like we should at least explicitly say, yeah, the committees are sort of the purview of the board president, and so board members need to understand when they're electing that board president, it's the purview, so that there's not then this huge disagreement over the gray space between.
Well, so actually the reason we appoint chairs is the board is an officio member. The board doesn't actually take control of the committee meetings. So we appoint the chairs. The chairs are the ones to call and report on the meetings. So the chairs run the meeting, they keep notes, they will come back and report to the board with their findings. They could even recommend a motion to the full board if they want. So it really does, I think, disperse some of the workload to others. But to your point, it's a regular appointment after the new voting cycle every April. The same way we, you know, vote this way, we'll say, okay, it's new appointments for chairs, or are people satisfied with this? We have maybe a new incomer, you know, we don't. You'll also be appointed to a different committee that you won't chair on. So it's usually one of those where, Angie, what are you interested? You try and just work and put people where they are. So I don't necessarily, I get what you were getting at, that in the time of dysfunction and chaos, that it's scary. But it also, I think, defeats the purpose and the intention of like what we're trying to set up to explicitly say, the board shall do, the president shall do that, like very, I don't know. Does anybody, I mean, you have history when we worked, you can check what you,
So what
we
happened,
had
like
committees
maybe-
previously.
Yeah, the board president assigns people to committees after they're elected, and then the committees just work on things that, you know, that are gonna go on the agenda. That things don't go to committee to die, they're always coming back to the board. So the thing, and that's how it used to work, and,
I mean, that's
I
the
think-
whole
I
point
think-
of writing
And I think that
this.
it allowed a lot of authenticity with conversations, and it allowed some board members who may have certain expertise in certain areas, whether it be healthcare, or, you know, building and grounds, or, you know, or governmental stuff, right, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, but politics, right, I mean, like, it
Right.
allows them to share their experiences in the community when we're creating or talking about that stuff, rather than as a whole, which kind of can stymie a lot of what we're trying to talk about. So, but that was why, I mean, that was kind of the reason for it, sorry.
I want the committees. I think the committees are what we need for this board to properly function. I'm just saying, when there's that gray space and there's not the hard and fast rules, that can sometimes lead to just as much discontent and anger with each other as if the rules are clearly outlined and delineated.
What's an example?
Let's say there gets to be an issue, and again, I don't expect this from this board at all, I think we work well together. Let's say there's an issue 4 years, 5 years from now, and the board had allowed one of the board members to go on a committee that they had a big interest in. Then it comes to light after that, oh, they've got some, not explicit conflicts of interest, but things that make the rest of the board uneasy. Then this chair of the committee decides to start investigations into how the district does this or that, and the rest of the board is uncomfortable about going down that road because it violates the administration's role versus the board's role. Well, does the whole board have the ability to then step in and say, we don't want that investigation to continue, we think it's, you know, improper for the board to be getting involved at that nitty-gritty level? Or is, because they were approved as that committee chair, do they have the ability to chair that committee? And I feel like right now,
You're just going way, way there.
I think that it's important for policy, I just want to say, I think it's important for policy to imagine what could happen when the folks who are here are no longer here.
But I don't think that the chair has that much power. You still have 2 other members there
Yeah,
that
you
can
still have your.
kind of stop that pretty.
Our policy doesn't say 3 members.
But Robert's rules, you have to have a quorum to
Yeah.
establish a meeting.
Yeah, you have to have a quorum.
But I'm saying also
And
that's
so
another
if-
part
if-
is, our policy doesn't have the detail of, it's not a 5-member committee, it's a 3-member committee.
But it's not. And we left it that way because the intention before was to not exclude members from coming to a committee meeting if they should choose. So this is a little different because before it was 3-member, we're putting people on it, that's who's meeting. And I think that's what maybe stemmed, like some of the issues stem from that. It was like, oh, well, only those 3 people get to hear it, and what if I don't trust them or like them? And so it's intentionally gray because it's like, man, if it's a topic that somebody has special interest or they just want to hear, the intention is not to be a whole board decision or a committee. We're not excluding people from that process, but it still follows Robert's Rules of Order and saying, right, there has to be a quorum, there is a chair, we explicitly say there's no action to be taken, the chair has to come back and report
to
the board. And yeah, so if the chair comes back and said, I would like to make a recommendation and motion to adopt blah, 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 then that's the conversation the whole board needs to say, like, well, I don't agree with that. Just like we would normally if something arose and saying, like, well, I'm sorry, I disagree with that.
Would you feel more comfortable if there was something in there along the lines of, you know, learning there's something about like abiding by the rules of ethics or like something like that? Because I think that's what you're getting at a little bit. It's like if there could be special interests within those committees and guide them. You know,
Sure.
I think that makes sense because like for me, I can't obviously be on the employee relations committee.
Right.
Right, or it would be like somebody in the community who maybe owns a business or something that, like an electrician or something like that, being on the buildings and grounds. Maybe they have great expertise, but they should remove themselves if there's some bidding going on.
But that's in our board policy
True,
anyway.
right. But I think that, is that kind of what you're like getting at a little bit with that?
I mean, that's
murky
a
area?
possible solution to it as well, but again, going back to, will the committees have 3 voting members?
Just to get
I
it
don't
on
think they
committee.
don't vote.
Yeah, just to get it
Just to
on
get
the
it on
committee.
So they're there for quorum
You
only?
You
and-
do, you have minutes, you
Yeah.
have a structure, so the three people appointed to the meeting,
To the committee.
which
yeah.
is the committee.
Mhm.
But I don't,
But it's still open, and so there won't be any voting
No.
at the committee?
No, not like to approve it for like actual school stuff, no, it just votes to go back to the board of the whole.
So then
No, but I mean
that's
to,
another
like,
question of,
to open the meeting, like.
oh yeah, well, that
like,
makes sense to me, but then, you
voting.
know, the committees have the power to investigate on behalf of the whole board, right?
Yeah,
So, I mean, that means researching, you know, public documentation and everything. Does that mean investigate district operations as well, or? And then if you have the power to investigate, we would like to start this project, is that only those three members there can decide this is the agenda for this committee going forward, or is it like any of the board members can come and officially have a decision to guide this committee?
I think anybody can have input in the committees.
Yeah.
And I think,
But wouldn't
I
you
think
be
you're
upset,
kind of
let's say
taking
if I
a
came.
different angle than I
Yeah.
am.
but I think the big thing, I
I'm
think
trying
the big
to-
distinction is we're taking our kind of like, and this sounds backwards, but we're taking our marching order from the administration when we get to committees. Because we're working on things that they're tasked to do, and we're just providing input, and then we're summarizing it and bringing it back.
Yeah,
That's
we're not
all
kind
it
of
is.
starting our
Yeah, we're not,
own
no
committee.
investigation.
I agree that we're not, and I agree that nobody
Yeah.
on this board would, but sometimes boards change. And I think that this structure right now works for this
Right.
board as seated, but I think that there should be some guidelines developed after we have a year of experience with it, to say, okay, this is a way we can better delineate how these committees are supposed to operate, while respecting each individual board member's ability to come to them, but also respecting that this committee cannot become, you know, out of control in the rest of the board's eyes or the administration's eyes. Because that does happen in boards in the state.
Mhm.
You know, that not everybody has a well-working dynamic like we do, and you never know when that could change, is what I'm saying. But again, wonderful thing for the policy committee, that's, I think, I'll vote for the policy right now, because again, I think it works for us. But I do think that there are things we need to think through of, would this lead us down a bad path if there was a really strong disagreement among the board members?
So can we revisit this in a year, put it in the board calendar and be like, what are the guardrails we need?
Yeah.
Would that be reasonable?
Workshop after a year, sure.
I mean, I don't even know if,
Because maybe it doesn't change, maybe it does.
do we need to talk about, again, like, the intended nature of these committee meetings? Because I think the angle you're coming at is not how I view, like, to
Yeah,
your
I know.
point, it's like, you know, like, the 4K issue would have been a prime example of, like, it's a hot topic, we're talking about it. I think we need more into it. Let's task, you know, the curriculum team
Mhm.
to do some deeper dives
Yeah.
with Dale, and maybe to spend some extra time before reporting back to us with some more information. Not, you know, Dylan saying, I read an article the other day and I would like to chair the curricula committee to adopt this new curriculum and invest, you know what I mean? So if we need to rewrite the intention more clear of not the chair and the committees having, I mean, I thought it's I thought it
Yeah.
stated in here that, you know.
I guess, to me, advisory, I understand that being more workshop type function, but then it does say power to investigate, deliberate, and report on issues, which seems to give it more power to me, than you were intending in it, you know? And if you weren't sitting as board president, that other board president could interpret
Maybe
that as-
instead of power, say ability, something
Well,
along that
that's still
line.
power.
Well, I mean, but power is like, power, I mean, I don't know, it's like, yeah, I'm not reading into it that deeply.
I mean, I feel like you could just say,
But I
school
do
board
appreciate the
committees
guardrail. I think that makes sense.
shall be advisory only, period.
Yeah,
Any information gathered
right,
at the
yeah.
committee will be shared.
I would say that because then, you know, if there needs to be any possible action from the committee,
Yeah, I
it's
would
clear
say
it
it
has
shall
to
be
come from the
advisory
board.
only,
Yeah.
maybe something like that. Maybe say shall be advisory only and report on issues. maybe take out the whole investigate and deliberate kind of thing, or maybe even take out the investigate part out of there. Maybe that's where you're kind of
Or you
stuck
might
on.
collaborate with administration to
Yeah, maybe that's the whole investigate part is kind of what you're
collaborate
stuck
with,
on.
collaborate
yeah.
with administration to investigate it, I mean, because we're collaborating with the administration.
But
Because
what
I
if
can
you
see
have a
where
bad
like
apple
the
in the
whole-
administration that you don't want your chair to investigate?
Then we make sense.
Again, works for our board,
Tara,
but
let's go.
I think what you're doing though is like, you're opening, anybody could say that about if we had a bad dynamic right now, we're still covered under board policy and our norms and how we conduct business. And so it's the responsibility of all of us to call out any of us for any of that, irregardless if it isn't like stamped into, you know, specifics on like, you are not allowed to do that, but you are allowed to do that, but you're not allowed to do that. And I don't know if we'd even cover all the basis by the time you're talking about Robert's rules and how we conduct business. Maybe we just need to like workshop this.
Yeah, I think it's hard.
I don't know.
I think if it's something.
I think it's just
right.
It wasn't
hard
intended to
because-
be,
Because I think either way, I mean, I think no matter which way you do it, it's gonna get mucky no matter who reads it. I think either going this way, I think it's just gonna get mucky no matter which way, whoever reads it, you know what I mean? It's like whoever reads this, they're gonna read it 2 different ways.
that's why I think that the guardrail should be, it always comes back to the board for any official action, or
Right.
the board president is the decider of committee stuff, and that's the fallback, that's the, clears up the muckiness.
That's what it
That's
says.
that's what we says.
Mm-hmm.
What we said.
I guess my input would be, Barbara and I work together on wordsmithing this event, and I feel like it does reflect that, to be honest. I mean, and I feel like even if you passed it today, and like Isaiah said, revisit it, put it in that policy committee to really think about, do we need to workshop it there? If you want, I mean, you can always come back,
Thanks, Dylan.
right?
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think continuing to table it, like, I think it's important to get some of these
Yeah.
committees into
Yeah,
place, so we can start having
Yeah, and
conversations
that way, if we
about
can
it.
come back
Absolutely.
and change some verbiage on it.
Absolutely. That is what I
We
said.
can put that on the board calendar.
Yes,
Great.
absolutely. I'll remind, that's what I said when this discussion started.
And when the policy committee meets.
Yes.
The one that Dylan and I are on?
Do I have a
I
motion?
don't know.
Do I have a motion to approve changes to policy PO 0155 committees?
So.
Oh.
Second.
He's gonna let you have that one.
Yeah, I know, I thought.
Any more discussion? Isaiah?
Yes.
Mary Beth?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Mike, sorry.
Yes.
Dylan?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. All right. Back to discussing our district resolution. Dylan, do you want to take us for an update?
Yeah, really quickly, what we would be looking is an amendment, which we have until November to do. We got a response from the director of WASB, which was well thought out and a big one, but they are not necessarily in favor of it. They are going to be changing some of the things they do for advocacy already at our kind of spurring of them, but I can send you the email because I think it's public. I just got it at 8 p.m. last night, otherwise I would have sent it to Bev earlier. So I think that I'm going to chit chat with our director again, if that's okay with all of you. I still think that WASB needs to work a little bit better for districts like ours. And the fact that this is one of the first spurs to them, including our complaints about value of the association to districts like ours, in my opinion, is good, and that we should continue that conversation with them as long as nobody's against that. But it was a big response from them, and probably let Barb.
Well, can I ask if I understood, because to your point, and we've run into this before when I opened up the magazine and saw a big article of Wisconsin Heights using PSI for work, and I'm like, who'd they call from Wisconsin Heights to run the article? And it's like, you are a service to the school boards. And so if you are advocating on our behalf, why is it your board of directors and legislative workers doing all the work on what we want without asking us
Right.
what we want.
Right.
And so I was confused at the response and saying like, well, this is working congruently, or, you know, with what we're already doing with our board of directors, and they're deciding things, and it's like, you're missing the point, because I think that's what we're saying is, right, we're so bogged down with all the school districts trying to adopt resolutions, and nobody can find, you know, similar things, and so it's a mess, so we're just having the board do it, when we're like,
Right.
that's the whole reason we're saying have this. So I don't even know
I
if the
agree.
response made sense.
And they also they were skeptical that the delegate assembly could be trusted with a really political task like that, which it would be. And Mike, one thought on that, but they might be right. They also, people might not care about the delegate assembly because it's not really powerful and there's not much really going on there because we have 150 resolutions and you can't focus on 150 things. And I think you're right about like, this is a Wisconsin Association of School Boards, but the school boards are not really included in that advocacy in what I feel meaningful way, and I don't think they got that totally from the rationale yet, and so I think we could be a little more pointed in our response to that, to push some more change, but we have time to do that, and I mean, whatever Michelle and Barb think too about that, so.
I mean, we're going to the regional meeting.
We'll see Dan,
stand
we will
up
see
and
Dan
say
anyways,
your
come to the
piece.
regional meeting, we'll see him. So that's the update on that, got it at 8 PM, and it's still going through my mind, and if you'd like it, I can forward it to you, it's a public record in my, I believe, it's my email, so it's a public record.
This is nice, thank you, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
I would never have thought about that kind of stuff.
Well, because there are things we care about, 4K, you know, building schools and the state aid, and they're all passed in 1993. So we don't talk about them because they're already there, but we care about them, and that's what we're missing.
Any other questions? Okay, keep up the good fight. All right, moving on, district business, 7.1. Melissa,
Hi,
the time has come.
I'm not gonna put on a hat, because I did the green stuff in my hair. Put on a football helmet. No, I did that one day. I tried to tackle Bev, she was not thrilled. So, I had more energy at 8 in the morning than she did. And I was just happy our football helmets all showed up. All right, and they were the right color, finally. So, all right, I want to start by saying this is a possible solution to multiple problems. I am not emotionally attached, but, and this kind of goes with how we got here, was when I first got here, I just wanted to listen to a lot of people, and I sat down and I talked to a lot of people. And the big concerns they had about football were, we couldn't get JV games. We can't play in the state tournament. We can't even begin to start to think about playing in the state tournament, and we never will. We can just put that on the table right now. They're never going to create a large Division 8-player football. Right now, there's only 17 teams, 8-man football teams in the state that can't play in the tournament. They have no reason to create a large school program. We travel really, really far for our games, and it's hard to get officials, because people might not understand this, but officials try to get state bids too. They want to go to the state tournament, mostly because then they can talk to their other old guy buddies about how they went to the state tournament. But they like to do that. You don't get state tournament bids if your whole schedule's 8 men. It's just the way it is. So we talked, you know, these were the problems that I kept hearing. I heard it from coaches, I heard it from parents, I heard it from the gridiron, I heard it from kids. So I went to the WIAA conference and I was talking to some ADs there from smallish schools. Ridge and Valley Conference, which is our football conference. Some parents, some coaches, some players. It's a possible solution, right? And some updates have happened since I put this up that make it even more kind of plausible. Going to the tournament can be a big deal. Right now, 8-man gets one less week anyway of football than 11-man, so you already lose a game. And it's kind of anticlimactic, right? I mean, your season's just kind of over. There's no real thing there. You'd get that full season. There are also things with 8-man football they don't really worry about. If you look at conference realignment, and I've learned a lot about this in the last few weeks, which is super fun. It makes my brain hurt. But they make sure that all of the 11-man conferences are full, right? They all have 8 teams. 8-man, you just get what you get, you know. We have 7 teams currently in Ridge and Valley, but one doesn't play because they didn't field enough kids this year. And so you just never know. We have 6 JV games, but 3 of them I've had most of the officials back out because they're going to 11-man games. So I'm going to try to refill them, but if I can't, we have to cancel those games, right? And that's happening on the road to 2 of our games. So, like, it's an issue. And I hate doing that to kids because I want them to be able to play. So Tom Schmidt, who's not here, he's lovely too though. We've been talking to kids. We talked mostly to sophomores and juniors because this affects them, right? And I love that we had the varsity guys and a lot of seniors come in. I love that. And I love their voice. But at the end of the season, they're gone. So that's why we concentrated on sophomores and juniors and a few freshmen to chat with. They want more games. That was a big thing. Like, they don't care if we, you know, they wanted more games. The tournament sounded great, and they wanted short bus rides. I'm like, okay. You know, in the way that juniors and sophomores and all kids kind of feel too. I was asked about fast tracking. Normally, conference realignment happens with 2 years' notice, and so you would apply to change, and then they look at where you would be a good fit, and all of these things happen. Fast tracking happens because people move in and out of 8-man quite a bit in small conferences. So I want to make it really clear there is no intent for us to ever go to Capital Conference for football, ever. It wouldn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to the WIAA. It doesn't make sense to the conference. It doesn't make sense to us. Scenic Bluffs is having a co-opt 11-player team transition to 8-man. So they're going to have a little room. That at first was our option, but since Friday, another option has also come up with the SWAL, which is actually pretty close to us. With Abundant Life and I just, and here just flipping. Like, because right now they're an 11-man playing 8-man because they couldn't field enough kids. And they're playing just all non-conference. So basically all the teams that play them in the SWAL this year get a forfeit win. And that's how it's all kind of working out. It's a lot. I feel like Derek up here. Okay. But, so I'm just trying to answer all of your amazing questions. There are 67 teams right now, which is up from 57 last year. Most of the new ones are up north. It varies year to year. And if you have questions as we go through, just stop me. You get some co-ops of 11-man switching to 8-player. We have some co-opt 8-player teams. There's a lot going on there. Rural schools tend to have a lot of movement between the two because sizes change, right? 50 of those schools are eligible for the state tournament. Like I said, there's 17 that aren't. We would either be Division 6 or 7. We're actually almost too large to be a Division 7 school when you look at it, but would be in 6 or 7. There's a lot of pieces that go into that. I'm betting they would start us in Division 7. Travel distances. This year it was an average of 54 miles thanks to Abundant Life. They brought us way down. But this would tell us, and Scenic Bluffs, I'm kind of between the two. SWAL would be an easier sell and it would be an easier flop, and everybody, you know, Belleville's in there, Fenimore, Mineral Point, they're pretty close for a lot of them. Also, non-conference games, we could get things like River Valley, Riverdale, closer teams, so that our non-conference, right now, if we wanted to pick up a non-conference or a scrimmage, you're talking a 2.5. Now, if somebody wanted to scrimmage us, but we would have played at the midway point in Black River Falls. That's 2.5 hours on a bus. I can't ask kids to spend 2.5 hours on a bus, play football for 3 hours, 2.5 hours. Some enrollment numbers. We have 245 children enrolled at Wisconsin Heights High School with 44 players. This will give you kind of, I mean, we're about double the size, football team-wise, of any other 8-man team, at least. We do, however, fit in pretty well with Swall's numbers. Coaches want their players to get reps, and this is a way where you've got more kids playing. It's kind of how it goes. Let's see. Feeder program. Right now our kids go to Sauk or St. Francis through Cross Plains. Sean Williams, who's a volunteer coach for the Vanguards, has been working to start a Heights feeder program. He was working with the previous AD, with Kendra, on that, and then when she left it kind of stopped, but they've already kind of got a website almost put together. They've worked on funding sources, things like that, to actually start a youth football program back up here at Wisconsin Heights. So he's motivated to get it going because of his work. You know, he was out there coaching the JV game tonight. So people asked about how hard it is to transition between the two. It's a lot of paperwork for me, but it's not hard paperwork, it's just paperwork. A lot of rural schools do go back and forth with the needs. You can either find a fast track situation, you can do what Abundant Life did. I mean, because quite honestly, the only downside for Abundant Life was they had to go out and find their own games. And they can't be in the tournament for 3 years. Well, they're too big to be in the tournament anyway. So that's not a consideration. And we will always be too big to be in the, so if we want to go back, we just fill out the paperwork by October 1st. And we can go back. And that's the end of my slides. What questions do you have?
So my very first question is, what coaches have you talked to?
I talked to Kobe and Connor.
Because I had the same conversation, and my conversation was very different. And Colby is my nephew.
Right.
And I had a conversation, a very lengthy conversation with Connor. And the conversation was very different. So.
Can I interrupt and just
Yeah.
say something about the nature of the discussion? Because
Yeah.
I think, I understand this is coming from a place of like optimism and excitement for other opportunities for our kids. So I think
Right.
we need to acknowledge that, and that none of these kids stood here and was like, absolutely not, never. They said maybe, but not right now. So I
Right.
think
Yeah.
we can acknowledge that this is coming from a cool place of like, maybe that's a possibility someday. And to like acknowledge the urgency of the request because of the deadline.
Because
Yes, absolutely.
that's the only reason,
I
yeah.
think there's also an alternative kind of side of things I was kind of shocked to see it on the agenda, and I think I'm sensitive to maybe other board members being shocked and parents and students in the community suddenly seeing something and thinking they're up and deciding something and maybe everybody wasn't given the opportunity to share their perspective. So I think we pride ourselves a lot of time on making very data-driven decisions and doing our due diligence of research and pooling perspectives and getting a wide array of opinions and having data to speak for it. And so I think my biggest concern and hesitation in trying to fast track this is that maybe we didn't have enough time to survey all the parents, survey all the kids, survey all the coaches, like give everybody an opportunity so that we can put it up there. And whether it defends, your
Right.
decision or theirs, it's more obvious to say, well, the majority and the consensus is this, because we can deliberate on mileage numbers and
Well,
transportation
you're
costs,
right.
and we can sit here and pick at that all night, but if the student voices are significant one way or the other, I think that just kind of sways the trajectory of the conversation. And so I think that's, where you were getting at is that it's a disservice at this point to kind of put us in a position to have to vote, but not really know who were the students, or do we give an opportunity for everybody to voice their feedback, or, you know, having a feeder program would be amazing, but is it too early to even be able to survey interest and even know in a 3-year span what those numbers look like when we don't even have something initiated?
Right.
So that's the
That's
concern.
kind of where I was going, because my first question was, you know, what coaches? My second question was, you know, what students? My third question is, what parents? And I know we have these 16 seniors. If we take the 44 players away from those 16 seniors, we have 28 athletes. What does our numbers look like coming up with the 8th graders? Because Isaiah and I both have 8th grade students coming up, and from what we know, there's only 2 playing football. 3, is that counting Grayson?
Nope.
Okay, so there's 3 8th graders playing football currently, and then there's my son that's gonna play. So I'm like, we're trying to figure out, like, you know, where these numbers are coming from. So like in my head, I'm looking at this and I'm just like, I'm not jiving with this, and I'm just like, I'm like, I was looking at numbers and I'm just like, I'm so confused, you know, and I'm just like, you know, there's just so many different variables that I'm trying to look at, and, you know, I'm kind of, you know, I'm looking at kind of like the, you know, before we transitioned to 8-man, and, you know, just kind of looking at, you know, what the numbers look like then, because obviously the numbers were declining so bad because, you know, they had 2 conference wins over a period of 7 years. And so they were declining so bad because, 1, nobody wanted to lose all the time, and 2, everybody was getting hurt because they just didn't have the size. So, you know, it's just to make an informed decision like this, it's just you know, like Barb said, it's just like, we need to kind of have, you know, more information on kind of like, you know, are there, you know, where the numbers are coming from, you know, kind of like, you know, how many people, you know, how many students, you know, how many, you know, people in community are really kind of backing this, you know, and that's kind of, you know, what we kind of, you know, go off of, you know, be like, okay, you know, is the majority of, you know, the students in the community, I mean, do they really want this back? You know, and
the other angle I was gonna say is when you were on the board, when we switched initially to 8-man, and it was to save the sport, because we literally did not have the kids in the program. We had a very successful soccer program, but as everybody knows, in a small district, you can't have ample numbers and everything. And so it was to save the sport of football and save an opportunity for kids, but also have a thriving soccer program. And I'm guessing in some of these Division 7 schools, they don't have soccer programs.
They have
Maybe the
robust
way,
wrestling programs.
oh,
no.
it's a different landscape.
Right.
And so there's so much to this that I'm glad it's in the forefront, because I think it's really good to tap into the pulse of like, what do kids think? How the numbers have grown. Is that because of 8-man? Do they actually like aspects of 8-man, or is it just certain trends? But
There was something in the water in 20 years ago. For all these boys. I mean, let's be honest, it's an anomaly with the number of boys. So,
were you one of those?
So my only concern, I mean, I love the 11-man option, but my concern is I don't want to see us back and forth.
Yeah.
Because I think that's more of a disservice to the program and to the kids. That's just my biggest fear. I want to see what kind of numbers we have. I do love the idea of this youth program. I think we get that established. I think that's going to be huge for bringing our numbers up. And I think that's a good way to determine how many more we got coming in the future. Right now, I think it's just very uncertain on how many will be coming in, and that's my biggest concern is how many are there and and not, I don't wanna see us bounce back and forth.
And I think that the community feedback I've gotten has been like, they're excited that this is still a thing. Like, if you were to ask anybody in the community, they would want to go to a living thing. But, and the reality of it is, it's like, it's not, like the guy said, I don't think it's quite there yet. Because I think the thing that's lost, even with all the losses and things like that, the reason I was around this changed over, is it was the lack of commitment from kids. They weren't committed at all. You walked in, you had a starting spot, you had no incentive to work on it. There was nothing you had to do, you just had to go and show up. And that led to the injuries and things like that, because there was no internal competition. Large teams with their internal competition are really good. Like that's what you want, because you want people to learn how to have a healthy relationship with competition. And I think that that's what got lost with that. And Rich Moyer did a fantastic job getting this all set up. Like, he was the one that took, I mean, he did a great job with this. Lots of credit for it. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I was more worried about, at that time, we were worried about the health and safety, but we're also worried about the buy-in, because again, if you go check the logs in the gym for who's working out in the morning, I mean, I know these guys work out at a private gym, but not all of them. I mean, they're not as committed as this group is, as the senior group is, and that is going to lead to some really hard problems, that there's going to be some really bad injuries. Because I talked to the former coach, Pete Jobke, who was, like, when they transitioned out, like, he had 2 seniors and 5 freshmen starting on his defensive line and offensive line, and it was a recipe for disaster. Not that we can't go to this, again, the big gorilla in the room is like, why doesn't Barneyville co-op with us? They're co-oping with Mount Horeb, which defeats the spirit of what a co-op is supposed to be about. If we had them with us, it's automatic.
Right, absolutely.
No questions asked.
Yeah, definitely.
But,
Because they do have the size. Like, I mean, they have 3 starting linemen on the team that they're, like, with Mount Horeb. And I mean, you know, they do have the size. And, you know, being from Ithaca, over yonder, where they have farm kids, they don't have soccer. They concentrate on football, baseball, and track and field. That's what they have. And those are some of the schools that we would be playing, and they play 11-man. So I know what the size is like over there. And that's kind of immediately what I thought of was like, that's what my concern is. You know, I don't even want to see it. I mean, yes, we're going to be out of like any kind of capital conference, but to me, that was my first inkling, was like, I don't want to see injury. I don't want to see that kind of trend happen again. You know, so I just, you know, to make a truly informed, you know, logical decision is, you know, something that needs to be, you know, not taken lightly, for sure.
I can share a story that kind of relates to the whole thing with my son when he was a freshman playing, that I was always worried about the freshmen playing at the varsity level. And we were at a scrimmage out here, and I watched my little son line up, and he's going up against this guy 3 times the size of him. I looked at my wife and said, watch this. This guy stood up, doink, and over to my back. I mean, it was just, it's a kind of a safety thing. I worry about the freshmen playing up at that level too quick before they're ready.
And plus, like, kids, if we know there's not anybody coming up that are just starting.
Yep.
I think that's a bigger concern. If they're just starting a sport at the high school level, like, the training is long since passed.
Yeah.
Like, the 10,000 hour rule would be good at any sport is really still there.
Because not a lot of them even go to Middleton, you know, Sauk or St. Barnabas. You know, there's quite a few kids that, you know, that go and play football for youth. They start out as a freshman. So, you know, that's where they start. And so, you know, there is that factor as well. And, you know, if we did have that youth program, you know, to Mike's point, you know, that would be a good starting point to see, you know, where those numbers are at, which would give us a more indication, you know, and, you know, it would be great to have a youth program again. We had one long ago, but.
And one of the things I had mentioned a long time ago, which never came to fruition, is look, we're not eligible for postseason play at 8-man, right?
No.
Correct.
Let's do our own tournament.
We can't.
Why?
Because you don't have, there's an ending date. You can't, and you have a max number of games as an 8-man team.
You have a max number
So
of games?
instead of writing a letter to be included in the 8-man tournament play, we need to be writing a letter allowing them an extended season for us to
tried, and there is a +1 option, right? The issue is that all of the schools near here are all eligible for the tournament, so they don't. Shellsburg, or wherever, somewhere very far up north, was willing to play us in a +1 game, but we would have had to have played in Eau Claire.
Yep. Okay, for Ghost Bus, let's go. Good night. Let's
Well,
go.
and that's how we're starting this, we're traveling 4 or 5 hours.
That's,
Yeah, well, we
that's
did,
the
yeah.
issue, right? And so,
If that's what it takes, I mean,
but,
you know,
And the thing is,
it is what it is.
it's like, I know do they currently have a new deputy director for Eight-Man?
yes.
Okay, so that's a new development, correct?
Well, ish, but they've always had somebody for 8-man. He also handles all athletic directors and all officials, and he has like 6 other jobs,
Okay,
right?
okay.
This,
So there's
I'm
no
gonna
like
tell you,
board of governance, or there's just
for
one guy?
8-man, there's a guy.
Okay.
Where's the guy in the phone booth?
There's a guy who has 6 other jobs.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm gonna tell, 8-man is a thorn in the side of WI.
it is.
Yeah.
Well,
And
all I
called-
can
had a
say-
conversation with them too, I called and asked.
yeah.
About what are the chances of getting a large school 8-man tournament? It's like, and they're like, Rochelle, it's not gonna ever happen.
Well, all I can say is that they better say that it's not gonna ever happen, because there are so many schools on the cusp of either going to 8-man or dropping football altogether. Richland Center has been on the cusp of going to 8-man for the last 3 years. Ithaca is on the cusp of going down to 8-man for the last 3 years. The only reason why they have 11-man last year and this year is because they have an influx of two grades that had well over the numbers of classes. And the next 2 years have like no kids at all. So when they say never, they should never say that word. Because every year, there are more and more larger schools that are either close to going to 8-man or dropping the sport altogether. Because let's be real, football is a dying sport.
Well,
It really is.
Eight-Man's growing, because when we started, we were the 2013.
Yep.
Now there's like 73 teams according to Wii Sports.
Yeah, with sports, there's 73 teams.
I don't want to get way off topic, you can just say, I don't know, but like Nebraska, for instance, small rural state, a lot of, I think, 7-man teams, don't they play in Nebraska?
Yep.
That's a
Seven-man.
predominant.
We have
but
6-man as well here.
Yeah.
Do you know what, like, other states do, not that we can change any of this immediately, or that I did, as far as tournaments and?
I
Oh,
have no idea what their caps are.
No, I'm just.
So, I mean, I get they're not gonna create a large man, 8-man, but would they ever adjust their enrollment number to absorb some more of that? I don't know, I'm just curious about
No,
something.
because they don't
We
want-
poke the bear and saying like, how are our 10 students over your cap? We're
Yeah.
20 students now.
We're
Really
actually
making-
45.
45, okay. At
Yeah,
the time, I
it's-
think it
it's
was only
ridiculous.
10, and we're like.
Yeah, we were really
great.
close at one time, I know that. That's why I'm asking if they would
And
ever
it's a
adjust that.
3-year average.
Okay.
But at the same time, they recognize parochial schools in the same divisions
Mhm.
at the state tournament play with, our other, so like,
Yeah.
what is the give?
I think eventually 8-man's gonna be such a thorn in their side that they're gonna have to do something about it. I
Because they're
seriously
losing
think
money.
that's gonna happen. Mhm.
Well, the reason why I think this is a good time to have
It
it
is.
on
It
the
is.
agenda is to have these
Good to have the
discussions.
conversation.
And I think it's an opportune time to, again, gauge the pulse of the people in the program now. Because I would like to know, like, maybe there are some kids that are like, no, I want 11-man. And maybe there are a bunch that are like, I love 8-man. That's okay that we don't go to state. I don't know. I don't have a kid in the program. I don't have a high schooler yet. So I think those are like, it's an opportune time to like tap into that and survey them, and maybe
Yeah.
even survey the middle school groups and say, we don't have a feeder program. Would your kid be interested in playing? Does it make a difference to you if we don't have 11-man or 8, let's start the conversation, because
We're talking
we
about it.
haven't. What?
Ask Barneville again. I mean, we haven't
Yeah,
asked them in
call
years.
Barneville.
Yeah, we co-op with them for a lot of other things, and this should be no different,
Yeah.
you know? They
I
got
mean, Mount
soccer.
Horvath wanted to get rid of them forever, but I think once they got their 3 linemen, they decided to keep them.
So, does anybody else have any questions?
So I have a comment.
Yep.
So on the plus side, for a small school, we offer a lot of stuff, we've got a pretty good soccer program and everything, we've got a lot of stuff going on. But I agree with Mike, I think it'd be very demoralizing to every couple of years just kind of switch back and forth, you know, once we've got ourselves established here. And I appreciate the official problem and all the other things that go with it, but I would just hate to keep going back and forth.
The other thing I do want to mention too is that, and I've heard this from several of the students too, is that, you know, they always appreciate the fact that the stands are almost always full. And they love the fact now that there are a lot of students that are coming to the games and they're actually traveling to away games. And I heard that at the Abundant Life game, there were not only parents and relatives of players, but there were a lot of community members that came to that game too. So I mean, that's a really good thing too, because when they were the last few years of 11-man, it was very bleak. And, you know, they hardly had anybody in the stands, and truthfully, some of the parents didn't even travel to some of the away games. So I mean, you know, it's just, there's a lot of things to consider, and, you know, I absolutely, you know, thank you for putting together everything for us, and definitely thank you for putting it in front of us, you know, so we can definitely start, you know, looking into everything and having the discussion.
So my proposal would be to table this action item for next meeting, because I know it still gives us a little tighter time to meet the deadline, but also use the extra time in maybe doing those surveys, and then maybe if we give them a week or two to do a Survey Monkey, that will give the crew and group another chance to come should they have more to say. We'll make sure we put it at the top of the agenda. And the coaches and, you know, anybody else that wants to talk to us about it, because I think even having Sam, Brock, and John talk a little bit, and from the lineman's perspective, and it's just a couple sentences, but those are the nuances of the programming that we don't know. And so any information is best, and I just don't, and you guys can speak if you think you're ready to make a motion on it, but I think we can use the time to continue the conversation and invite people from the community back if they have further thoughts.
I think it's does most think you can get a survey done with like the middle school in time to get us the results to make a decision next board meeting?
I can try.
Because I mean, I don't want to have you go through all that and then all of a sudden it's not going to be feasible. So that's why I'm curious if it's something that can be done.
It's something that I think the people that know we're talking about it are hopefully willing to give the feedback.
Oh, I agree. I think they will.
And it doesn't have to be a long, dragged out thing. It's really to gauge interest and,
Yep.
I don't know, do you have anything else?
Like Ben Voss, former AD, had said, he hit the nail on the head when he goes, we offer too many things to be graded in one. And he goes, because we do make a lot of what we offer, which is great, but to be truly extraordinary in any one thing, or we just kind of have that one thing we're really good at, is really hard.
I think it'd be good to have another discussion, because there were a lot of community members that were excited about the possibility, and I think there's still some answers we could have to say, you know, this is why we decided to or why we didn't decide to, because there's a lot of people who don't know the details, right, of the dangers and stuff.
I agree. I just, if I can get a little more information, I would definitely feel more comfortable making a decision either way.
And you get the sense that the staffing of officials has more to do with the prestige and things than the pay. Like, there's no way, if it's a slippery slope, there's no way to sweeten the pot of paying better.
We actually don't have that option
We can give them a
because
senior banner.
it's done by the conference, so that's what determines pay. A big issue is also like the JV games, like just being able to have them, because we don't continue to have a solid varsity program if our JV players, or they aren't gonna keep going to practice if they don't get games.
And then
So
does
what's
the senior
considered
ballot-
a full roster of a JV and varsity 8-man separately? Or, you know,
Separate?
well, I mean, some of the JVs
Some
come
of-
up and play, but
In our case, a lot of them, it's really fluid, And we can only do that because we can't go to the tournament anyway,
Okay,
because it's not legal.
gotcha, okay.
But they do it, it's not legal, but what's the
We're not
WIA gonna
following
do to
guidelines,
us?
right?
You
Yeah.
know, they don't have anything they can do at this point. for-
I guess
'cause-
I was getting at what point, we're losing 16 seniors, at what point are we not gonna have a JV team? Because
Well,
varsity is full, or,
well,
you know,
yeah,
what does that
it's,
number look like? I know, it's hard
we
saying.
see them, 17.
Okay.
We easily see varsities with, there's a varsity team out there with 12 in our conference. They only have 12.
I mean, and that's the catch-22, right? Because I hear what you're saying. If you're a sophomore and you're not getting any playing time, I would go to play soccer. That's what a lot of people did. I mean, during high school is when it shifted over. We got football players to come play soccer, partly because of that health thing, but also because they were going to get playing
Well,
time.
now you have dual athletes, we have athletes that play soccer and
Well,
football.
yes.
Your kickers, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, we actually have linemen that play football and soccer. Mine were that.
The last thing is like the Scenic Bluffs Conference, do they even have JV teams? Like, is they gonna have a JV team with 25 kids? Do they have to, those teams have?
No,
JV teams?
and
So
very,
that's like with the Swole one, you have JV teams, right?
a couple of them do, but not a lot.
Okay.
Ithaca's actually co-oping. They're voting on it tonight.
They're actually voting to co-op?
They
With Virtual Center?
No,
With who?
Weston.
Yeah, because Weston's gonna
bravo.
leave our 8-man,
Really?
which means we will pick up another team.
Oh, they're voting to do an 8-man tonight?
No, they're voting to co-op to stay 11-man.
Oh, okay.
They're
With another
gonna
team.
co-op, and they're gonna co-op with Weston.
To stay 11. Otherwise, they would have to go to 8 because they probably don't have the numbers to stay on.
See?
Is Weston in their conference right now? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yeah,
So
so
they're
they're
going to be
moving.
Weston
Yeah.
next year.
Yes. And they're actually, right now, Weston is co-oped with Waniwak.
Yeah, with
But
one.
Waniwak is co-oping with someone to go 11-man.
They're switching dance partners all over the place.
Yeah,
So it's not like 8-man,
because
it's
we always.
8-man is not state.
This is starting to sound like our state funding.
One more time, it makes my brain hurt.
Okay, so we're gonna table, the action, to next meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay.
That's good.
Do you need a
Awesome.
motion for that or?
No,
I just wrote it down.
all right.
do we?
Yeah,
Like a table feel.
yeah, an official action
Okay.
table.
I will make a
Just-
motion to table 87.1.
I will second your tabling.
Did you say 7?
7.1.
Okay,
That's all I got tonight, Dale.
okay,
Sorry.
Isaiah?
Yes.
Mary Beth?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Matt?
Nope,
Yes. Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Sorry to
Okay.
give you more work.
It's all right, I was gonna get bored here soon, I'm sure.
You can think of a really creative hat for that conversation.
Yes,
Football
absolutely.
helmet,
Dig through your stash.
the old one.
Laugh if you want, I think my parents probably had one.
Okay, district business personnel, do I have a motion to approve 8.1 to 8.3?
So, oh.
Second.
Oh, jeez.
All right.
You guys are like,
Welcome Morgan, Hunter, and Sonia, thank you for coming on board as vanguards. Any further discussion on those hires? Isaiah?
Yes.
Mary Beth? Yes. Mike?
Yep.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan? Angie?
yes.
I vote yes as well. Future meeting dates are listed. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Are we, you had texted, are we gonna do the,
You
Dates
said you
now.
said on a date for.
Yeah, I was just gonna do
Okay,
calendar
okay,
swaps.
gotcha.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, Isaiah?
Yes.
Mary Beth?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan? Angie? I vote yes as well. Thanks, everyone.